It's all right, George. George, thank you very much. I'm glad to be back in Childersburg in Talladega County. To speak briefly to you, I sort of want to give you a report because I've been all the way from the Tennessee line down to the Gulf in the second primary, and you people voted for me in the first primary. I led the ticket in Childersburg, and I led it in Talladega County, and I want you to know that I'm grateful for that fact. And we're going to lead the ticket in this state by even larger vote than we led it on May the 1st. And I don't say that boastingly, but I say that confident. And I am humble and grateful for the fact that I look forward to the 29th of May that I will be nominated your governor with your help. And I don't believe there's any problem that the people of Alabama cannot meet and solve with divine guidance. Yes, it's an immense challenge to be the governor of the state of Alabama. But I told you in the campaign for governor, I told you, I'm going to back out of the sun a little bit, because I plowed a mule a many a day in the sun, but I'm just getting a little older, you know. And so if you don't mind me backing back a little bit. And I want to tell you about roads and bridges again. I told you in the first primary I was going to help you in the 4-lane project from here, from Childersburg to Birmingham. And I tell you what, there's two reasons I want to help you do that. First is I just believe you ought to have the road, and I'm for roads and bridges being built throughout the length and breadth of the state. And second, you voted for me in the first primary here, and I know you're going to vote for me in the runoff, and you know that's going to make me have a sympathetic ear to any road and bridge problem that you have here in Childersburg and Talladega County. I want to tell you people in the textile industry again that I've talked on in every section of the state about using the influence of the governor's office to work or to persuade them in Washington never to take any more action that would cripple the great textile industry. You know, they've taken a lot of action in the last number of years that has hurt this great industry in view of the fact we have the unfair foreign competition. I will use the power and influence of that office to join with the other textile governors to fight to protect the textile industry and the textile workers. You can rest assured of that. I not only talked about that in this primary, but I talked about it in 58. I talked about it in the first primary. Also, I'm going to use the power of the governor's office to work toward every river development that we can have. The Coosa River development, every river inland waterways development. I'm going to do everything I can with the other states involved to persuade them in Washington and take whatever action is necessary, because any development of the river systems not only helps this state, but it helps the nation become stronger industrially and agriculturally. And the stronger our nation becomes, of course, the stronger we are in this fight against the communist menace. I'm going to tell you about reapportionment. We're going to have reapportionment. We've got to go ahead and do it because the federal courts have said so. I'm not for it because they said so. I'm for it because it's right. We just got to get that problem behind us, because if we do not do it, the federal courts are going to do it. And let us do it, Alabamians do it, and not have a bunch of federal judges, half of them come from anywhere from Chicago down doing it, because they ought to keep their nose out of it anyway. But the federal courts have a habit of sticking their nose where they ought not to stick them anyway. My friends, I'm going to work for the farmers market program that I've told you about. I'm not going to go into at length on that. Any other problem that you have in this county, I'll have a sympathetic ear. The matter of industrial development, let me talk about that 1 minute. I heard the other day, about 2 weeks ago, that an industry larger than the $25 million plant that came to Cherokee, Alabama under the Wallace Act was looking at several locations in Alabama. That if they came to Alabama, they were going to use the Wallace Industrial Development Act. But they had looked at several other southern states also. I called the president of this company in Michigan and told him that I hear that you've looked at several spots in Alabama. And he said, yes, that is correct. And that you looked at spots in other sections of the South, and he said that was correct. That you're going to come, if you come to Alabama, under the Wallace Act. He said, yes, we are considering the Wallace Act. I said, I believe I'm going to be nominated governor of this state the 29th of May. He said, I know, I've been in Alabama, and I know you're in the runoff down there because I've been there doing the campaign for governor. I said, please don't make any decision on locating this plant before the 29th of May unless you decide to locate it in Alabama. If you're going to make that decision, make it. I want to come and talk with you in Michigan after the 29th of May when I am the governor-elect to tell you why you ought to bring your plant to Alabama, why you will be appreciated here, and why the people want you to come, and what a healthy climate we'll have for industrial development. We got the gratitude and admiration of millions of people in this country who know that when we stand up for constitutional government, that we are standing for the Constitution of the nation and for local government for everybody. I've had enemies of mine that go all over this state and say, George Wallace is too strong for segregation. Now, how in the name of common sense can you be too strong for it? You're either for it or against it. There's not any middle ground. And I want to tell you this, that I am unalterably opposed to any mixing in the public schools of Alabama, and I believe that we got the insides to stand up on the plan I told you in the first primary, we can win. All it takes is some insides and some intelligence, and I tell you what, and some standing up and letting them know we mean what we say, and we can win that fight. Some of them say, well, don't talk about the federal courts. Well, why shouldn't you talk about them? Thomas Jefferson talked about them, and Andrew Jackson and Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, talked about them worse than any president we ever had. You can't get a single member of your Congress in Alabama to praise them. They've all talked about them. Why can't I talk about them? Yes, the moderates and the NAACP and all of them say, shh, don't say nothing about the courts. They aren't holy men. You know, they don't hang the breeches on the wall and jump in them every morning. They put them on one leg at a time, just like you and I do. And I tell you what, you don't need anybody in governor of Alabama who's scared of the federal courts. And they say, well, if you stand up and be strong, they'll jump on you. Anybody who thinks they'll not jump on you for being quiet and meek as a mouse, well, you need to go to a good veterinarian and have your head bored for the holler horn, because that's what's wrong with you. Did you know that last year and every year we spend, and y'all having to pay tuition, see? You know how much we spend every year on boats, pleasure boats in Mobile Bay to ride big shots around in with free liquor and free steaks, been going on for many administrations. We spend $204,000 a year, $816,000 every 4 years for pleasure riding when these children are having to pay tuition to go to school here in this county. Yes, I'm not going to get to carry 50 people to every football game with me, and I'm not going to get to go to fishing trips and hunting trips with 50 of my friends and you paying for it. I'm going to go to football games if I go and pay my own expenses. The governor of Alabama ought not to have his expenses paid on any pleasure trip. He ought to pay it out of his own pocket. And therefore, we're going to take this $1 million extra that I'm going to ask the legislature to give me less and give it to the schools of Alabama and to the old people of Alabama and to the handicapped and the mentally ill and the tubercular and the other unfortunate people of Alabama.
I'm not talking about loudmouth talk. I'm not talking about going around making a lot of speeches. I'm talking about something that's constructive. Well, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, he was going to put all the federal agents in jail that came into Barber County. You remember that? Well, do you remember when they came down there? He didn't put them in jail. He shook hands with them in the corridor of the courthouse and accepted a summons for them to come to federal court. He ain't put one of them in jail yet. Do you remember that? And then they talk about this case down there in federal court in Montgomery, and he goes around and jumps all over the federal judge. Now, I don't know whether it wears a federal judge or not. I rather doubt it. I don't imagine he appreciates the unkind remarks that have been made. But really, what has that accomplished? The way he talks, you'd think he won that case down there. My friends, he didn't win it, he lost it. Do you realize that? He lost it. The only issue in that case was whether the federal government would have the registration records of Barber County. They got them. What difference does it make whether he handed them to them at midnight or whether they got them some other way? The fact remains they have them, they got them, he lost the case, he didn't accomplish a thing in the world. Why, it's just like me. going down here to Kilby Prison and telling some poor fellow that I happen to represent and arguing his case to a jury how eloquent I was and how great and tremendous my words were to the jury when they convicted him and sent him down there for life. I wonder what he'd think about the words as he sat down there and served his sentence in Kilby Prison. That's really what happened in this thing. He lost, the state of Alabama lost, and yet they still go around talking about it. If you want to bring integration to this state, then you follow the course that he advocates, and we'll have it quicker than in any other manner. Do you remember Little Rock? Do you remember all of the loudmouth talk that went on in Little Rock? Do you remember all of the big doings and the big eye this and the big eye that? And after all of the noise quieted down and the dust settled, the schools in Little Rock, Arkansas were integrated, wasn't it? All of the loudmouth talk didn't solve a thing. The School Placement Act, the Freedom of Choice Act, the Independent School District Act, and those are the three things that have stood between the people of Alabama and integration, and kid yourself not about that. And I'm proud that I've been down there contributing something to it. And I've been doing it in a manner along with other devoted public servants in Alabama who are not seeking publicity, who are not trying to run for political office on a basis of what they were doing, but who are trying to render a service to the people of this state. And I want you to know that there are numbers of many, and that they're serving in the legislature now, and that they've worked many, many hours all through the night trying to help solve the problems, and many of them have been created by a lot of the loudmouth talk that we've had in this state. You can't solve your problem by having leadership that's rabble-rousing and loudmouth, and you know it just as well as I'm standing here this afternoon, and you better not fall down the primrose path, because, my friends, if you do, the dome of the capital of Alabama is going to tumble right down on top of your head, just like it has everywhere else that approach has been followed. He's worked hard. He's a good speaker, and he'd make a good governor, but he just don't have a chance to get elected. Well, you know, the truth of the matter is now, since they see that I not only have a good chance of getting elected, but that I'm going to be the next governor of Alabama, I've turned from one of the nicest people in Alabama to one of the most terrible fellows that ever sought public office overnight in about 10 days' time. They've had that South Alabama Barber County rumor machine going 36 hours a day. But all that proves is this, that when desperate men see that they are about to get beat, then the only way that they have a fighting back is through underground rumors. I haven't spread any rumors about anybody in this campaign, and I haven't had any unkind remarks to make about any candidate in this race. And I've asked my supporters not to do anything but to go around selling Ron DeGraff and Reed, to sell a positive program to build this state up. Some of the rumors that they've spread really are so ridiculous that I guess I ought to ignore them. But you know, anything gets tiresome after a while, and you kind of think, well, surely they'll quit because they'll take care of themselves. Why, they've spread it all over Alabama that I represented Ortharine Lucy, which is not a thing in the world except a falsehood. And I want you to know that, and I want you to know that I don't appreciate too much people going around saying that sort of thing, because that's not necessary in a political campaign. There isn't anybody in Alabama that's been going around spreading the rumor that I represented Ortharine Lucy that really believed it. All they've been doing was spreading it for political purposes. And then in some places where they think Catholics are unpopular, they've said I was a Catholic. Well, I haven't got a thing in the world against the Catholics. And if I was a Catholic, I'd want you to know that I'd be the very best Catholic that I could. And I'd be right down there on church trying to do the best that I could to help my religion. It just so happens, however, that I'm a Presbyterian, that I was born in the Presbyterian church, baptized as an infant in the Presbyterian Church and been one all my life, and my preacher just happens to be standing right back there now, Sam Bryant, preacher of the First Presbyterian Church in Tuscaloosa. And I think I've been a pretty good Presbyterian. I was a deacon up until just a little while ago, and my term of office ran out, and I hope the preacher there will help me politic a little bit when I get a chance to come on back up and work with him some more. But the thing is this, my friends. Do you want people running this state that really will go around spreading that sort of thing about a man? And this is something that's not just been spread in Talladega County, it's been spread all over Alabama. The thing that's happened this spring has been a virtual political revolution in Alabama. Now, you realize that a young man came out of Tuscaloosa about 90 days ago, and not anybody that knew anything about politics thought he had a chance. They didn't think that I'd get enough votes to count. And my friends, it's the finest thing that ever happened. But because of the fact that they didn't think I had a chance, I'm standing here today, free and unobligated and unfettered, with no obligation to anyone except the people of Alabama. And the reason for it is quite simple. The politicians and the people of great wealth that try to obligate people when they're seeking public office didn't think I had a chance, and they didn't even bother to talk to me about obligating me. And I be doggone if they gonna do it now, just because they see I'm gonna win, because I'm going down there. I'm going down there to do a job for you. My obligation is to you. I'm going to take it to you, the people of Alabama, because this is your fight. It's not my fight, it's a fight for the people of Alabama to have good, strong, decent government in this state. That's been the whole basis of my campaign, and I'm not going to change it one bit, because it took me from nowhere to where I am right now, and I want you to know that I'm just as confident that we're going to win this race as anything that I've ever known in my life. My friends, this is the most important election that the people of Alabama have faced